The following program was produced by a community producer. The content, views, and opinions expressed are the sole responsibility of the community producer and do not reflect Malden Access Television, the City of Malden, or your cable provider. MATV welcomes your comments. Call us at 781-321-6400 or email us at access@matv.org.
My name is Osa Schwab, and I'm here as a host of Inside Malden Ideas and Stories That Inspire. From a small office on the 4th floor of the YMCA, Mei Hung, the executive director of the Chinese Culture Connection, meets with volunteers, plans educational programs, coordinates arts events, and supports the many Chinese-speaking residents who live in and around Malden. Despite scant resources, she is able to carry off high-impact occasions such as the annual Chinese Culture Connection Gala, recent film screening of the award-winning My Life in China documentary produced by Kenneth Eng, and a plethora of East Meets West lectures and discussion groups. An avid collaborator with many cultural and civic organizations in Greater Boston, Mei is a kind of catalyst for cultural engagement amongst the Chinese-speaking immigrants she helps, the youth she supports, and the communities she serves. All this is possible first and foremost because she herself is curious and eager to learn about other cultures and to share about her own. She is also very aware of how encountering cultural differences helps to hone one's own sense of cultural identity. In a community as diverse as Malden, Mei's drive to use culture as a bridge of human connection and attunement is most certainly something to harness. I am delighted to welcome today Mei Hung, Executive Director of the Chinese Culture Connection. Mei, welcome.
Thank you, Osa.
I know that, Mei, you were born in rural Taiwan,
Yes.
and you came here to the United States as a young adult. Can you share a little bit about your origins?
Well, where I was born, or where I grew up with, was in a very small town right by the Taiwan Strait.
Mm-hmm.
And very poor people, small village people were farmers and fishermen. And that's where I come from.
Mm-hmm. And you have a large family. I believe that you were, let's see, I have a picture here, a lovely picture.
Yes.
And you, let's see, are here on the far left, is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about these people here in the picture.
This picture was taken when my second brother was getting married. Was in his wedding picture, and my parents were not in the picture. Actually, the first woman on the far left, she was the matchmaker, or is a matchmaker, and then my brother, and then the bride, and then my sister, who is 3 years older than I am, and then that was me at the end of the bench. And behind there are 5, 6 women. They were bridesmaids.
I see.
And the rest are neighbors and the volunteers for the event.
So living in this rural kind of setting, tell me a little bit about, what was school like? What was your social life like? How was life?
It was very basic.
Mm-hmm.
People go to school, kids went to school, and adults went to work.
Mm-hmm.
And if on the weekends, the kids were expected to go to farm to help out. I remember one day my father came home and saw me was having lunch at home, and he asked me, he said, "How come you are not in school today?" And I told him that today was Sunday, and he told me that, "Aren't you feel ashamed that you did not go to work to the farm to help out?" I feel really terrible.
Wow. How old were you then?
Well, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years old.
Wow.
Actually, no, probably between 10, 12 years
Mm-hmm.
old.
Mm-hmm. I remember we had a conversation one time, and you had shared something about a the headmaster of your school had come to your father to ask that you be able to stay in school.
That's right. Yeah. So my father, who actually was born in 1906, that's a long time ago. He grew up very poor, so he did not believe women should have a higher education, and so he actually I was done with my schooling when I was sixth grade.
Sixth grade.
Yes, and luckily, this school principal was so wonderful. He's really my angel. He went to had a list of students who were not being signed up to go to middle school, and he probably visit every single family and to ask the family why they are not sending their kids to school, because that's considered a compulsory, mandatory schooling that you don't need to pay extra. I mean, you may pay something, but not necessarily a huge amount of sum to send their kids to school. So come to my house, and my father told the principal to say, what would be a waste? Well, she will be eventually in the kitchen raising children and cooking. Why does she need to study more other than able to read a note or a letter from her husband? In that time, maybe men went out to work and send back home a letter of money or something like that. So that's what his rationale about how women need to be, just elementary school should be good enough.
Right.
And then the school principal was very clever. He said, well, actually, you are wrong. Nowadays, if you send your daughter to school, have more schooling, that means that you give her better dowry, and she will be able to find better men to take better care of her.
Right.
And his son said, wow, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let her go. So I have this sister who is 3 years older than I am. He also say, ask her to come back, and we two of us went to school together for 3 years in middle school.
Thank goodness for that. Wow. So his philosophy was that it was a waste of time to educate a woman because her role would be in the kitchen and taking care of the children. Right.
Yes.
So what about school? What were your interests in school? I mean, what did you like to do? What subject did you like the best?
Well, as in the countryside, when parents never really encourage you to say you want to be someone, or you have to go on to have more school study, and the type of there was never really much stimulation in terms of, well, what would you like to be when you grow up? It was almost like you are being prescribed to be someone already, and you just follow the age
pattern,
or the path.
The script.
Yes, exactly. So I never really know what I like, but I knew one thing is that I love art. I love to sing. I had any time when I was a chance, I would sing songs for our classmates.
Really?
Yes, and I
so you like to perform, eh?
I like to paint.
Oh.
And I remember when I was in middle school, a teacher even asked me, so Mei, did you do this yourself? So, I mean, I would guess maybe I did a pretty good job, because
She didn't believe that it was yours.
Exactly. So that's kind of a sad situation where when you have a certain talent or something was never been encouraged or discovered, or try to continue to say, oh, actually you can do a great job, why don't you do more, or do something like that. So it was very little stimulation in that area. So
what was it that compelled you to even think about coming to the United States?
Okay. Well, that's a long story. So besides my very basic schooling, where my parents could put me into, I went to high school by myself. I put myself to high school, and it was that when I was falling in love with a guy who I thought was a God made for me. He was so handsome. He's
charming.
Yes, his every move. He was so had a great sense of humor. Everything that really touched me, make me feel so, and I really just melt. But I was not able to correspond or communicate in the same equal level.
And was he very smart? Was he educated?
I believe so. I think he was well educated. He was very good looking, very smart. He had a career, he had a job in a construction, procure.
So this was while you were in high school?
No, actually, I already graduated.
Oh,
I already graduated,
and was working from high school, and you were working, and then you met this guy.
Yes.
Okay, and just to back up, you said you put yourself through high school. You meaning that you paid for it, or you were living alone and going to high school?
I was living with my brother, but we all could not wait to get out of our home.
Out of your home.
Yes.
I see.
So my brothers are from countryside. One by one moved to Taipei, where the city, that the opportunity of jobs
Okay, that makes sense.
And so I was the last person to come to join them. And my brother at that time was having a little manufacturing of a men's clothing shop.
Oh,
So I
see.
was able to help him to see the keep the shop open.
Oh, okay.
And at the same time, he would support me to go to school at night.
Oh, terrific. Okay. All right. Okay, so now we can get back to the love story.
Yes. So after we both expressed interest to each other, and he, of course, is very cautious because I believe he had a lot of experiences. So he asked my boss or other colleagues, where I also actually had another job. Is in between, I oftentimes either work outside or at home with my brothers. And so he asked my boss to see who I was and all that kind of thing. And then he was asking me if I want to go to beach. And I said, no, I could not because I had many jobs. During the day I had a job. At night I had, if I work outside, would work with my brother at home to watch his store at night. Or on the weekend, I would work in a small clinic to be a nurse.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
You wore many hats like
Yes.
you do today, right?
So I did not have time to go out with this guy. And then finally, after a few months, I realized that if I don't create opportunity, I would never have a chance to meet with this guy, And so I sent a note to a little in the office. They always have a volunteer or like an intern who will ask him to send stuff or how do you call that? The
Boy Friday or something?
yeah, not a passenger, or the delivery boy.
Delivery boy,
Yes.
right, okay.
So we have that in Taiwan too, and so I asked him to send this note to this guy. And so we met to go to the beach, and we only met twice to go to the beach. And the first time he asked me if I brought any picnic items or anything like that. I said, well, I was not experienced to do that. So the next time, of course, I prepared. But then the second time, he got sick with my food. And then he may call me back. Oh, boy. And
so that was it?
Yes, that was the end
Okay.
of the story. And I was so lovesick. I was like only one-way street. I called him. I wanted to figure out,
So you still called him even though he sort of rejected you?
Well, he just never called me back.
Oh, I see.
And so I tried to call him a few times and there was no response. So then I realized that, the romance is over. But it was like only went to the beach for a few hours and come back and that's it. Goodbye. There was never really having depth conversation or something like that. So it was a pure fantasy on my part, or I don't really know what was in his head.
But there was some connection between this and then you thinking about coming to the States?
Yes. So what happens was one day, I feel the experience was awful. It was really, one day my sister asked me, said, Mei, if this guy is ready to marry you, are you ready to be someone's wife, someone's daughter-in-law, someone's mom? Because all these expectations will come one after another. And I suddenly realized that actually, no, I was only fantasizing romance. The rest of reality never really came into my head. So then I really start to wake up to realize that I don't have what it takes to be someone's wife, to be in love with someone who may be, the right person for me. And so I feel that I need to improve myself. That little education I had, I did not really have enough content in my head to carry on a conversation, to express myself, who I am, what is my value system, or what I like or dislike. Nothing of sort. Never have any discussion in that far situation. So I decided to study. And during that time, actually during that almost over more than a year, that I feel so lovesick. I was so withdrawn.
So you were in pain.
Yes, the whole Taipei was full of darkness. I could not really consider anything, just like there is no hope. And so that conversation really struck me. And during that time, I also started to read. And even though it's from my brother who had left a lot of books, and he loved to read. My brother who he was also an artist, loved to read a lot of philosophy book or some kind of literature.
That's where you get it.
from Western culture.
Oh, really?
And so I picked up some of the books to read, and even though some of the things that I did not really quite understand, but it really helped me to think much more deeper that I never thought about anything before. So I started to re-examine myself and what I was going to do with my life. And I realized that the only way I can really get out of this mess is really to improve my education so that I can find out what is the purpose of life.
So a painful encounter with love led you to reflect internally and to create a plan to further educate yourself, which included then formal education and then departure to the US. Is that correct?
Took me 3 years to plan for this trip.
So you planned and then you saved up money and then you arrived in California, was it?
No,
Or
actually, my first stop was in New York.
New York. Oh my. Straight to the Big Apple.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, and I had no fear.
So you came to the United States. What year was that?
I was 83.
83. Okay. So do you remember your first impressions?
It was, New York is such an incredible city, very
Yes.
busy, very big, and of course that was was June 15th, and that time was pretty hot already. So I vividly experienced a lot of just like hot air, and I got lost in the train station because of the train going this way, that way, and always not quite sure the right direction. And it's people are pretty passionate. I heard people calling me on the street, "Hi, baby, I love you." I said, "Hello, hello." I went to 42nd Street, 34th Street, and just a lot of people just say hi and I say hi back, and it was like so exhilarating. I mean, like it's so inspirational, and the energy is so much.
Yeah.
And I remember my first winter I encountered. The cold and just penetrate my brain, and it feels so crystal clear I ever felt in my life.
Wow.
The cold.
You mean because it was so cold? That's really interesting.
I mean, because when you're young, you have been young, so the experience of that coldness is different.
So new,
exactly.
I guess. Yeah.
Very, very refreshing.
And had you ever seen snow before?
No. Was it the first time?
When you saw snow, what was that like?
I was jumping in the air and then really dancing and trying to catch the snow. I said, "Oh my gosh, melted in my hand." It was just incredible. But of course, after a few months, I realized it was not fun.
So what about like people and, after maybe a year, 2 or 3, were there other impressions that sort of you had of United States, and what was the United States like, or what were people like here?
My experience with the people is mostly very positive. I think that people are pretty open and curious.
Okay.
And when they see where I come from and what I have to do, they all really give me a lot of encouragement. I remember, actually the second week, 2 weeks later, I came to Boston, and a friend of mine, American friend, took me to Fridays. And
Fridays?
sitting by the bar, and he told me, he said, "Mei, look, a lot of people are looking at you. This pretty Taiwanese girl here in America." And suddenly really struck me. He said, "Oh, I'm a foreigner here." I just never really think. I was like, I said, "Oh, I'm having a good time," even though I don't really speak English.
Well, that's really cool. And how did, over the years then, how has living in the United States affected or influenced your own identity?
Well, I think that the education really hit me hard. And of course, that was really the goal of my journey. And I came here really the purpose to study English and to learn more, to really move, to elevate my spirit, my mental state in a much more different place, and so that I can really to enjoy reality. Or actually, I would say that when I come to America, I really come here to pursue education and try to search of meaning of life.
The meaning of life. And
gradually, continuously just study is such a tough process. And
how so?
Well, because I was never really a material of a good student, because I just learned that I have a dyslexia condition. Right. And so I was never really a good student. And of course, the environment where I grew up was never really have that kind of atmosphere or like
support to learn how to compensate.
Exactly. Yes. All resources that help me to realize what shortcoming I have and how I can really need to sit there and study. And so on top of that, I have to study English. Is language that's brand new to me. And even though we learn when I'm middle school, it was very basic. You never really learn how to speak. And I remember in Taiwan, one night before I came to this country, I was people always say good evening. And of course, I was asking the woman to say, what do you say? What did you say? She said, good evening. I said, oh, I have learned this before. I can never really understand. So in reality, it's very different. You
It's
could
very
have
different.
a lot of vocabulary, but you
Faster
cannot
and-
use
yes,
it
right.
properly.
Sure.
So I feel that America gave me the opportunity to really discover who I am through the process of education. And I was not able to have a higher education in my country because when you pass certain age, then your job supposed to be something else other than being in school. So there was no such opportunity to say, oh yeah, when you're 20 years old, you go to school. Or unless you are already in school, then that's a different story. But if you are not, then you are expected to be something else, and then you continue to move on, and then you become getting married and have children and have a job or something like that. But it was never really, so easy. So it can be anyone, anything you want. It was not as flexible, or people.
Right.
Of course, no one can push you to do what you cannot do or don't want to do. But still, there's a certain atmosphere where you don't feel comfortable, that you don't fit in, and that's somewhere I did not want to be. So when I came to America, I quickly really went to school. And after a couple of years, that my people said that my English was good enough, so I went to Bunker Hill, and then I moved on, continue. And so the process of learning really almost reminds me of like I'm just like a little child, learning how to stand up, how to walk stable, so that I can move a little faster. And so this gave me a sense of a gratitude. I start to get more and more to realize who I am or what I can do. And at the same time, I'm also feel very grateful that through the process that a lot of people are giving a lot of encouragement. And that sense of encouragement really provide me a lot of kind of really impetus, push for me to no matter what kind of struggle or challenges I still willing to embrace to hopefully will help me to become stronger and a much more wise person.
Right.
And so it's through that type of process that I will continue to push myself. And I feel that people who have given me a source of inspiration, and I would like to continue. And so I think it's in that way of learning that I really feel that here in America is really a better place where I can express myself.
Yes.
So that's why I stay in this country. And at the same time, I feel there's so much I can do.
There was you had mentioned there was an encounter on your journey west where you had met someone and they offered you some words of wisdom or a poem. Can you read that in Chinese and then tell us what it means?
So this is the right way to read from your side. Okay, so let me read in Chinese. 心静则明，水止乃能造物。品超思远云，飞而不爱空。So the first 4 characters, meaning when your heart is calm, it will be clear. And just like the water, when it's calm, it can reflect things. And so that means also when your spirit is very lofty, and you can fly as high without obstacles.
Wow.
And this poem was given by an old gentleman at the Lai Lai Hotel. Actually, it's called Sheraton Hotel at that time. It was a brand new hotel 20-some years ago, 30 years ago then, who was frequent to that hotel. And I was working at a pizza pub where I was getting ready to come to this country and try to make more friends, about foreign friends. And I told him about my preparation to come to America. And so he gave me this poem before my departure.
Wow.
And I did not know how to contact him. I feel, I carry this with me everywhere I go. And I just feel so stupid that I should have kept contact and to thank him to provide such inspirational poem to really for me to take with me. So it's constant a reminder for myself, so how I have to really become so that I can be more focused.
So one of the things we've talked about in the past is this notion of when you encounter a cultural difference and you learn a little bit about it, then you become more aware of your own culture and Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
that I often tell people about like culture is like air. You
Yes.
breathe in and out, and you never know it's there until you step out of your comfort zone and you start to realize something is different.
Mhm.
And that's why I feel that I want to use Chinese culture to help people to do the same. So when you come to experience the Chinese culture, it
Mhm.
will automatically really help you to rediscover your own culture, because we share a lot more in common than the differences. And this is such a tiny bit of difference. That's what makes us different and interesting, so that we can really use that little tiny bit of differences to really spark the interest part of ourselves, so that we can enrich each other. And so with the situation where I feel when I came to America and I see the vast of a fascination of everything so new and so
Right.
incredible, interesting to me. And at the same time, when I was so curious about asking everyone questions about why this way, that way, and then sometimes friends will ask me, so Mei, you are so curious about asking us questions. Why don't you tell us about your Chinese culture? I suddenly started realizing I know nothing about anything, and let alone with the lack of cultural content. At the same time, my language skill, I did not have enough vocabulary to express myself. And so even though I was very passionate about sharing my ideas or what I know, and oftentimes friends have to make a multiple choice for me to guess what I have to say. So
multiple choice, I like that.
So I one time even feel like I really wish I could really swallow up the whole dictionary, so I can really have enough vocabulary to tell people what I want to say.
This is a nice segue to your work at the Chinese Culture Connection, and what drew you initially to it? Because I know you started as a volunteer, and then eventually you became the executive director.
Yes, I was a volunteer for 2 years since 1997, and by end of in 1999, because when I got into 1997 at the organization, that I heard rumors, the organization was actually housed by Reading Memorial High School. So many years before, when the executive director or the founder who found this organization, who provide free programs to the school where her children was in school, and the outcome was so positive, and everyone wanted to have a piece of the experiences. So the request was so much, and ultimately, a few years later, the school invited the organization, say, we're going to offer you a free office space. You can operate your business any way you want. You have access to our phone number. They give us a phone. We had to have our fax machine, I think, but there's 2 lines to use. Right. We also have access to a copy machine in the teacher's room, and we have a huge classroom plus a nice storage room, and you can do anything. But in rural rent, we had to offer free programs to its public schools. Okay. And that was handshake deal. That's a nice deal. No contract of any sort. So years later, when new administrators, new town hall people changed the administration, and the new people have less interest in the organization, and they also need a classroom for other use. So we're talking about they're going to get us out and use that space. That was only rumors at that time. So I was told by the members or friends of CCC, because some of the family who have their kids or they themselves participate in our event and become friends of CCC or be on the board of CCC. So I was told about such a situation, so they told me to watch out and all that. But of course, I was a volunteer. It was just a kind of background information. So by 1997, the news came about, and it was a phone call message in the answer machine in the middle of July to say, we need the office space and we'd like you guys to move out by end of the month. And that was that. And so, of course, quickly when I saw this message, I told the member of the organization who told me that earlier. And immediately she helped us to put this meeting agenda into the town hall meeting. And so it becomes global news, Boston Globe's news. And so more than
Boston Globe?
Yes,
Really?
yes.
Wow.
So about what the organization did and all that kind of stuff. So more than was one of the town or community or city call us. I received 3 calls, and Malden was one of them. So I lived in Malden for 5 years during my years when I was in Bendy.
Oh, I see.
So I was a little bit familiar with Malden, and also in terms of proximity to Boston, Malden is the most closest one. The other one was North Shore, I forgot the name, and then there's one in Littleton. So it was a little bit of stretch in terms of distance to Boston. So I choose to come to Malden. And of course, the founder also, she was kind of really tired and exhausted about, the organization, and very difficult to get funding to support. And so she was thinking about closing down the shop.
Gotcha.
And I feel, wow, what a wonderful organization, that it should continue. So I picked it up.
I would like to ask you something, and that is, I think, based on your study of philosophy and the number of things that you've said to me over, the year, that you have an idea of what a civil society is, perhaps. And tell me how the Chinese culture connection serves in a way as a platform to helping create such a society, this utopia or
Yeah, very good that you mentioned about the utopia society. That was one of the attraction that I always wanted to study. In my college year, I did study. No, I did a essay in utopia society.
Really?
But after I wrote that essay, I just realized it does not really quite working. Utopia society more like a communist. You have for common goods, but there are people who work harder than others, so you want to have more rewards. So anyhow, when I talk about how the Chinese culture connection or the Chinese culture in terms of is a philosophy, it has some kind of a really profound wisdom that we can really borrow and try to practice it into nowadays society. I think that through my many years of working with CCC, and even though I don't consider myself a very cultural person, but because of the necessity, I need to get a little bit of some knowledge to explain people to say what Chinese culture connection is doing. And so I come across to learn more about things. So the Chinese philosophy, and I come to know, let's say, Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, all these have so many good ideas how that we can live in more harmonious condition. And in terms of harmonious condition, is that harmony is really in many aspects that we're harmony within ourselves from inside out. Now how we can be more in sync in ourselves with our thoughts and our behavior, so that we have more in peace with ourselves. But harmony also ourselves with our surroundings, and our surroundings with people, with traffic, with the climate, with everything, and surroundings with a much more bigger cosmos in the whole universe. And those kind of connection require that we need to be much more in tune from within first, before you have the sensitivity to be able to become more aware of what's around us.
Right. And so do you see that the Chinese culture connection, by sharing this, raising awareness of these philosophies, and maybe also through art, that this can be sort of imbued in people's ways of thinking?
Yes, many different dimensions, many different ways, and everyone relate to things a little differently. So through the discussion, through some kind of activities,
I see,
to really can relate to people. And again, as I said earlier, that we share more in common than differences, so we can all relate to things that where is universal. Right. So, and for example, I oftentimes when I go out to teach a session about Chinese language, so the Chinese language, so the character itself in the old days, if you know the civilization stuff before language, written language was available, people use some type of shape or like universal images, such as the sun, the moon, the shape of anything that we can all identify, recognize it as a universal object. And later on, then change into the how do you call that, alphabetic shape or whatever, and then so that you memorize and become the words that we use today. But Chinese is only one culture retain that original shape of those called pictographic of images.
Very visual.
Exactly. So this is very visual characters inside of that word has a lot of wisdom in it. So for example, I often like make two words, which is much more very, very easier to for you to see. So the word called listen. So what do you think of when you listen? What kind of body parts do you need to use in order to listen?
Obviously your ears and your eyes.
Yes, very good. So your ears to listen the sound and your eyes to pay attention.
That is
but
so
also
cool. Your heart.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I love
so
it.
these three faculties need to be together at one time, together in order to absorb and digest and process all the information that comes to us.
So there's another thing that you've mentioned, and that is, we're in a high-tech society where we're constantly and you talk about person-to-person connection, like high-quality interaction, and one experience I've had with the Chinese culture connection was when you helped me to find a volunteer to narrate for a Scandinavian, a Nordic vocal ensemble's concert, which was a traditional Swedish Lucia procession.
I remember when I first went to BB, they had this program called I Know English. It was created by like high school students.
Oh.
Yeah, so I signed up for it since like my teachers like, if you want to improve your English skills, you should probably try to like take opportunities like that as much as possible. So I met Mei, and she was the coordinator of the program. Yeah, and I talked to her a lot, and some days when my parents are not home, I would just like stay in her office, and like the office at like the place we were meeting, and they had like a piano, so like I was playing piano while talking to her. So that's how I met her. And after I came to the high school, there were so many other opportunities, and like some of the opportunities are provided by her, since like she's also in charge of the Asian Culture Club at the high school. And yeah, so like for the Asian Culture Club, we do like an annual show, like the Little New Year show. And she usually coordinates like all the performances and stuff. Yeah, so that's how I got to know her more. Like when May first sent me the email about it, like I was kind of hesitating because like never done such things before. But like whenever I got to high school, like I keep reminding myself of how, even though English is not my first language, I should like take in opportunities and just like try my best.
And are you happy you did it?
Yeah, I'm really happy because it just like I still remember it felt really different from like the other things I did because it's like a different atmosphere. So I think it's just like really interesting to learn about other ethnicity and traditions. Gaining knowledge about other cultures and traditions is just like gaining knowledge as a whole.
That to me is such a wonderful example of a cultural exchange.
I think it's very important, and I really enjoy that myself also. And of course, everything I do is because I enjoy myself.
Well, that comes through, and that's so important.
And I feel it's so important that we want to have the Asian immigrant community, particularly those people who don't really speak the language and they really clump themselves in a little area and box themselves in. And I think that when they come to America, they really need to free themselves from box themselves in a little corner. They need to come out to experience everything. And I think America is a super, super wonderful place. This is a country, there's no other place in the world that has the whole world, entire world's culture is right within our reach. And I think even more so, and more than that, we are so fortunate to have so much diversity within our community. So I want to encourage the Chinese people to come out to experience the culture other than their own culture. And only through that we can all relate to. And I'm sure a lot of people who are also Christian, and doesn't matter what religion, because it doesn't matter. Religion, we all teach us how to connect our hearts together. And we are all brothers and sisters in a much more bigger spectrum. We are in the same boat, in the same this planet, and yet we divide ourselves because of language, or because of the color of our skin, or because of whatever likes and our different individual ideology. But I feel if we are able to have that sense of curiosity and interest in learning about another culture, and when you also know your culture enough, you can share, and that's fantastic. If you don't know your culture, and I know a lot of people, even including a lot of Chinese people, don't know their own culture well enough to even articulate what it is.
Right.
You know, except that you look like a Chinese or you eat Chinese food. And beyond that, there's nothing else that you
Right.
can say, you know, I feel proud because I am Chinese because such and such. And this is something I want to instill them to say, you know, I feel so proud because I'm Chinese, or I'm so proud I'm Chinese American. I'm so proud because I'm a global citizen.
What does the Chinese culture connection need in order for it to have a full impact, the impact that you hope for here in Malden? What are some things that would help it take it to the next level?
Well, I think I would start to say that we are very fortunate to be invited to Malden from former Mayor Howard, and then now our current mayor, Gary Christensen, is also very fantastic, supportive of the organization and the community in general. And we also have our own limitations because right now we have been, I mean, the organization is really operating in such a small stream budget. And so manpower is always limited, and we were being spoiled by, because that we had the city to support us for such a long time. And now we have to really have a need to pay for our own space and
raise your own funds.
Exactly. And YMCA is really wonderful to support us.
Sure.
That we pay a very small rent and have a small space. So the space actually, it's really very, very tight. And if we wanted to really expand our program and to be more effective and productive, we need to have more space so that we can accommodate more staff, so that we will be able to share some of my responsibility. I feel my head is all over the place, and I really cannot really be focused. I would like to be able to see bigger picture and have someone who really in charge for certain things, so that we can have a more enduring programming that have a more long-term impact. That would be better, because if the staff who himself or herself who is involved is also a personal development, and that is a very important growth. And personally, I feel through the program that I have been doing and the needs that I observe, and so we continue to expand a little bit of program here and there wherever that match our mission. And I feel there's so much to be done.
Yes.
And you need to have lots of people to do it. You cannot be doing one person alone. It's just not possible.
It's not possible. Well, I really hope that in the future there can be more resources for the Chinese Culture Connection, because I think you do more than just serve the Chinese-speaking community, but you serve the rest of the community and stimulate this curiosity that I think is so vital. And you exhibit it beautifully.
Thank you. Don't you think that is more interesting? I feel
absolutely
connecting to another culture, discover your own, and you really enhance your ability to appreciate life far much more.
My goodness.
Otherwise, you know, your own culture, like this one aspect becomes mundane. Then I feel life to me is so interesting, and every day there's something new to learn. And even with the Chinese culture, I mean, the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. And that's how deep, how profound, that is so much to know. And yet sometimes we really get into, right now with the technology, we want things now, right now, and we want instant gratification. And I think that a lot of wisdom is really from within. If we allow ourselves to come down and then to really take something in and digest it and really sip deeper, and you realize there's a lot to come out. But not until that you are able to digest it and then bingo with your whatever that is inside, then we don't have the opportunity to allow those wisdom to emit, to come out, to make an impact to our community. And that's a very abstract thing to say.
But it's abstract, but I saw it in a way in action also at the International Women's Day, when we had these three, parts of the world, China, Taiwan, the Scandinavian countries, and then Morocco and the Arab-speaking, and we collaborated to have this event. And it was truly sort of an example of what you're talking about, I think.
Definitely. I think more dialogue will inspire more dialogue.
Exactly.
And then we can all empowering each other.
Right.
And it's just, to me, it's...
The sky's the limit as to what we can do together.
Exactly.
But we need more resources. So anyway, thank you so much for chatting with me, Mei. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always nice talking to you.
Thank you for being with us. This is Inside Malden, Ideas and Stories that Inspire, and I am Osa Schwab, your host.
走过没有希望的边缘，我发现前面道路还很远，这是一觉不会醒来的梦，我注定要寻找它。当痛苦没有了机会，温暖一次击不到我的肺，感觉不到这种美妙的滋味。我想也许这个世界不会再有，不会再有，不会再有，不会再有。不知什么时候变老，不知太阳能否继续微笑，我的心里有太多的烦恼，不知怎样把它治好，不知什么时候开始变老，不知太阳能否继续微笑，我的心有太多的烦恼，怎样把它治好？